You're listening to Sweet Life, the show that helps you find and walk your own special path. I'm Brooke Peterson. Here on Sweet Life, we like to explore unconventional career possibilities, self-discovery, professional development, and more. Whatever helps and whatever works to make it sweet. It's fascinating what costumes and masks do to people. Masks have been used in rituals and celebrations and performance for 9,000 years. There's got to be something to it, and not just to get a bag full of candy. All right, if anybody knows masks and what they do or may not do to people, it is our special guest today. I'd venture that as a kid, Barney Burman had the best masks on the block. He comes by his chosen vocation honestly. Not only is he an award-winning special effects makeup artist, but so is his father. His grandfather is considered a pioneer in the field before there was even a name for it. Okay, Barney's work includes, among many others, The Ring, The Matrix Reloaded, Dawn of the Dead, Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl, the really, really good one, Zombieland, and one of my favorites, oh my God, Barney is responsible for the nearly unrecognizable Tom Cruise as Les Grossman in Tropic Thunder. Who didn't get a kick out of that? That was awesome. That was incredible. Oh, and that award I mentioned, that would be an Oscar that he won in 2010 for J.J. Abrams' Star Trek. Currently, he is the makeup designer and creator of the dark fantasy TV show Grimm, seen every Friday night on network TV. Thank you for joining us, Barney Burman.
Hi, Brooke. Thank you for having me.
I scored. Interview Oscar winner, and that'd be me saying, check. Appreciate that. Okay, Barney.
Yes.
Tell us what you do.
I usually get up around 6:30. And
Is it a chore getting out of bed, or are you one of those bed bouncers in the morning? You just boom done.
I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm a bed bouncer. No, a bit of a slow riser.
Okay.
Kind of like the dead. But I am a special effects makeup artist, and I make monsters and dead people.
Monsters and dead people. So do you love Halloween or hate it?
I'm trying to feel a little more in the spirit of Halloween this year than I usually am. But I mean, I've done it. I've done it so much over my lifetime, and I've been in makeup and put on so much makeup on Halloween, and I don't really care to do that anymore.
I get that, sure.
I think most of my friends are pretty wise enough now to just not even ask me for anything. I have a son, 14-year-old son named Anton, who I definitely make sure he's geared up each year, and that's enough for me.
That must be pretty. That's got to be pretty darn cool for a kid to have a dad be able to do what you do. The pictures of your work and the movies that I've seen of yours, not even realizing at the time that I was going to meet you and talk to you, like Pirates of the Caribbean, for instance. I mean, that's just amazing work and amazing stuff. How long does it take you?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, if you look at my IMDb, and you obviously got a lot of titles off that, some of those things that you mentioned, I was a very low rung on the ladder for, so Pirates of the Caribbean, for example. I worked on maybe 6 to 12 days making up extras and stunt guys, and there are other people that deserve really the credit for a film like that.
Okay.
But it doesn't, not that it really matters.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's still really great work.
But But on behalf of like a giant team of people on each of these projects, it takes an enormous team of people to put this all together and make it really believable. And even on Star Trek, which I was honored enough to be able to put the team together and win an award for. But I mean, the team consisted of well over 100 people to make that all happen. And it's kind of a shame. It'd be nice to be able to give little certificates or something to each one of them.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, I'll just hold on to the statue. And
oh, yes, the statue. Barney brought the Oscar into the studio today at my request. Thank you so much for doing that again. It's such a thrill. I mean, it might very well be the closest I ever get to it. And it's a pretty cool little statue, I have to admit, guys. And it is heavy. You always hear the people talk about how heavy it is. And it's true. And I can now say firsthand that I know it. All right, we'll get to the Oscar thing later. But Let's start a little bit. I'll reset. Let me regroup and start from the beginning. So you grew up with your father and your grandfather in this business. So what was it like for you as a kid? I know Anton must be having a good time, but what was it like for you firsthand?
I really loved it. My father used to make masks and makeups and such for films like he goes back to the original Planet of the Apes, and I remember he was doing like Island of Dr. Moreau in the 70s, and he brought home masks. And it wasn't even Halloween. My brother and I would just put them on and go running around the neighborhood, peek into people's windows.
Oh my God!
Until they noticed us. And, there'd be a small moment where they'd be like, oh, look, it's the Burman kids. Come on in here. Let's see what you've got.
You're well known on the block, I guess.
Yeah, and we used to have Halloween. And before there was a thing where people would have, personal haunted houses, we would set up a haunted house and use a lot of like these masks and props from some pretty big, significant films to flesh out the sort of the macabre trail round through our backyard. And our goal was to either make people pass out or puke. But we had, people lined up down the block, and it was just for fun. We weren't ever charging or it wasn't a economic thing at all. It was just, that's what we did. We had a great time.
It sounds like it. Pass out or puke. I wonder if that's a boy thing or just a Burman thing.
A little of each, maybe.
Well, speaking of, are there any women in your family involved in the makeup artist?
My dad's wife is a makeup artist, and my mother had a store. She retired and sold it, but she had a store called Burman Industries, still called Burman Industries, and it sells materials for makeup effects. Okay. And she sort of became sort of this grand dame of makeup, of young makeup effects wannabe artists. Would go out there and buy materials from her. And one such a budding makeup effects artist used to come all the way up from Mexico just to get materials from her. And it was a guy named Guillermo del Toro. Mm-hmm. And so I remember him coming in just saying, hey, how do these chemicals work? How does this rubber? And now he's Guillermo del Toro.
Yeah, big director.
Yeah.
So do you feel like you had a choice? Do you kind of feel like this life was chosen for you, just being in the family, or do you come by it honestly?
No, that's a good question. I kind of felt I resisted it a lot over the years, and I pursued an acting career, and I feel like I'm something of a, I don't want to say a Renaissance man, but jack of all trades maybe, where I want to do many different things, and I still want to do many different things, but at some point I felt like, why am I resisting this so much when I enjoy doing it and it's profitable? And so I finally just sort of gave in and sort of started riding the horse in the direction it was going. And things started to kind of take off a little faster once I gave into that.
Yeah, committed. Now, was there a moment that really just sort of nailed it for you? Like, all right, I'm going to go with it. I'm making a choice now. Well,
there's a film that I worked on called Powder back in 95, 96. And that's when my father got the job initially, and he sent me off to do the work with another makeup artist. And this other makeup artist named Steve Laporte, he and I, we do the main character every day, paint this guy basically white. Yeah. But it was never just white. It was layers of almost whites.
Okay.
Anyway, I really enjoyed that job and that experience, and that put me in the makeup union. And once I was in the union, I started getting other jobs that would put me on set doing makeup, and it was almost like a whole new world opened up for me. And that made a huge difference.
I remember that movie pretty clearly, especially his look, his appearance. And I imagine just having seen you, I worked with Barney briefly a couple years ago on a film called Shuffle, where he did some amazing old age makeup through a person's lifetime. So it wasn't just, old, it was specifically old. And I saw his work, and he would, first of all, it took a good chunk of time to do all this. And one of the things I remember the most is that with TJ Tyne, he had a wig on, and Barney we'd cover the hair and then paint the veins on the scalp even though it was going to be covered with a wig. And I just thought that kind of thoroughness and attention to a detail that nobody will ever even see was really impressive and very memorable, clearly. But we'll be right back. We're talking with Barney Burman. He is an Oscar-winning special effects makeup artist and designer here in Hollywood, working on Grimm at the moment. He is taking a little break out of his job from Portland to come and visit with us. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. All right, you're listening to Sweet Life. I am Brooke Peterson, streaming live from the beautiful campus of Pasadena City College here in Pasadena, California at lancerradio.org. But you probably already know that because you're listening like the good person you are. Thank you so much. Okay, so today we have a very special guest, and it's probably no coincidence, or not much of a coincidence, that it's Halloween too, because it kind of goes hand in hand. And as Barney says, what he does is he makes monsters and dead people for a living. So that's pretty cool. And it's not something that most of us get a chance to do ourselves. So he's going to tell us all about it. And let's get into the process a little bit. I know you've been doing this forever. When did you start designing?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think part of that goes back from just being a kid and Halloween and wanting to be an actor and starting to create characters. And that's one thing I love about what I do is I still get the opportunity to create a character. But even like junior high school plays, I would do the makeup for them as well as act in them. And I was always trying to change myself into something with a big nose or a bald cap or an old man, at 16 years old. So I think that was just always part of my nature. Mm-hmm. Also, I had this doll. It was a puppet I remember I got for Christmas one year, and it was called the Hugo doll. And it was a little hand puppet and with a little vinyl head that was all blank, had no eyebrows or hair or real features. And the puppet came with a kit of scars and mustaches and beards and wigs and these other things that you could put onto it. I also used to take my G.I. Joes and I would sculpt new faces on them.
Really? They're tiny.
They were tiny, yes. But I wanted them to look like, something else, whatever I wanted them to look like.
That's really interesting. And now do you think those ideas came to you to do that just being around your dad? Or just wonder, it's hard to tell, but I wonder if you would have done that otherwise.
That's a good question.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Hard to, who knows?
It's like unless you have an identical twin that doesn't grow up in that same atmosphere, you really can't tell.
I guess you just got kind of lucky. Not only were you born into the family that you were, but you are so good at it. I mean, maybe it's just the natural talent.
I don't know. I look at the things I do and I can appreciate them, and I appreciate all of the effort from everybody that goes into making it, especially under time and money constraints that we have on every job. And I try not to judge it too much. I just try to make it so that I feel good about it. Mm. And then I will always, if I revisit, come back and look and go, oh, no, it's wrong. It should have been this. It should have been that. It's never...
the creative process.
Never completely satisfied. But I just know that it's kind of in the air that I breathe. Yeah. And it probably is directly related to growing up the way I did in the family I did.
Now, in the industry, is that how it is with most people? Do they generally come up through family connections and family history, or are people that just come at it totally cold and on their own?
In this business, there's all kinds of levels. There are people who... There's very few people, actually, I think, who grew up around it.
Oh, okay.
Most people became fans, and I kind of admire that. I admire someone who became a fan of something in spite of their family selling insurance or working on a farm or whatever they did. Mm. And the idea that you had something that you felt so passionate about that you would sort of walk away from everything you knew and pursue that, I wish I had that. I wish I had that passion.
Maybe you do. Maybe you didn't have to find it because it's
maybe I don't know. Maybe it's just I'm exactly where I needed to be. Maybe I didn't have the constitution for that, so it's better that I am in the environment I needed to be in already.
Yeah, it's perfect. It worked out. So when you get a script and somebody has hired you to do the makeup for it, where do you start?
I read it, and I don't know. I do. I literally read it. I'll break it down. I'll see what the writer put in there that they want to turn into some kind of effect and see in reality. And then we have meetings and start talking about it.
And when do you start? You sketch, or is it all computer-based now? Or
I am not much of a sketch artist. I always liked working in clay more. And I've done some Photoshop, et cetera, so I can do some digital work. There are people who are better at that than I am, so I try to get them involved. On Grimm, for example, before I came on the third episode, and before I came on, they had already had these two guys doing these digital designs named Konstantin Sakaris and Jared Morantz. And it's like, if I'm a smart person who wants to make creatures, the guys I should go to for designing these creatures digitally are Jared and Konstantin. So I'm not about to stand up to the producers and say, I want to design them. No, they've got the best guys out there. Let them do their work. And then for me to be able to take their design and take the actor and marry the two together and put my influence also on it, that's a real privilege for me.
So when you're, I guess, designing and creating these costumes, how much of the actors, I guess, comfort, like they have to breathe, how much of that
sometimes.
Really becomes?
Sometimes I take that into consideration, and sometimes I don't. A dear friend of mine, a guy named Jim Neeb, who's a brilliant actor and improvisationalist and comedian, and I make him up as George Bush from time to time. He does these gigs as George Bush, and he's hilarious. And
I saw those pictures, by the way.
Did you?
Yeah, on your Facebook. Yeah,
we laugh together so hard. So anyway, I got him hired as an alien in Star Trek, and we had this makeup on him that pretty much covered his head entirely. And it had no eyes and it had no nose. It only had his mouth. And the funny thing about Jim is that he's not generally a claustrophobic guy, but he doesn't like sticky things on his face. So, and that sounds weird, but for him to want to be made up as George Bush and have prosthetics glued to his face time and time again is hilarious because he can't stand the process of getting into. Once he's there, he's fine. So to put him in this 2-inch thick silicone block that covered his entire head for 2 days was not the nicest thing I could have done to my friend.
Do actors freak out? I can kind of, because I'm not really claustrophobic either, but I can kind of see how an actor might have a little panic attack or anxiety.
Occasionally, but very, very seldom. It's because it's like a piece-by-piece process, and they don't always love the life casting process, but generally, I think it depends a lot on the energy of the artist that's putting things on or putting someone through a life cast, and that helps put people at ease. And if they trust you, and I always try to give them a very comfortable atmosphere to relax in. Well,
I imagine spending so much time with these actors day in and day out on long movie shoots, you must get to know each other pretty well.
Yes. I would say that you get to know an actor very well.
Yeah.
If they want to be open at all. Some actors are not open. They just want to come in, get made up, and go on their way, which is fine. And some people want to talk. And, there's an element where you almost become a little bit of a therapist at times, just they need an ear to vent into. And it's the same thing, not just in doing the makeup, but I want to always create in the makeup trailer sort of a safe haven, a comfort zone for the actors to come in and nest in the morning and feel that they have a safe place to be while they're getting into their preparation for the day's work.
That's cool. I imagine most of them are getting there significantly earlier than other actors who are not in the mix. So they get there really early, right? Like 4 or 5 in the morning, maybe?
Yeah, my earliest call, right after I got in the union, I had a 1 a.m. makeup call. Wow. And this was on a TV show called Alien Nation.
Oh, yeah.
And we had to just go in and make aliens and just crank like 3 of them out by 8 o'clock. And you're talking about, 2 hours a piece at least. And then on Planet of the Apes, we commonly had between 1:30 and 2:30 a.m. makeup calls.
Yeah. That's a bonding experience there.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And, I wouldn't trade it for the world. We've had some really great experiences with crews of people on big shows, traveling to weird, fun, exotic places.
It must be. I'm sure you have a gazillion stories. But you mentioned something about life casts. Mm-hmm. So for people who haven't, who don't know anything about this, explain what that is for them.
Well, we sit you down in a chair and take off your clothes. Take off
That's
your
thing. Like,
often
people
we'll take off
naked oftentimes.
Yes, we'll take off a shirt generally and put a plastic trash bag on with a hole so your head to come out, and tape that around you. It's just basically there for protection. So it's not things aren't dripping all over you like crazy or getting on the floor. Put a bald cap on and to protect your hair, and then cover you in silicone. Leaving the nostrils open so you can breathe,
heavy?
Of course. It gets a little heavy. It starts with a layer of silicone and then another layer of silicone. And then you start to put a layer of plaster bandage on the outside of that. And that becomes like a shell. So when you take the silicone off, it has a shell to rest back into so it doesn't get all floppy and distorted. Process takes about 20-25 minutes once it starts going on. And it's not bad. It also gets heavy, yes, and it starts to heat. The plaster bandage starts to heat up on the outside, so people feel warm and heavy and inside this thing.
And they don't freak out.
Sometimes they do. But again, I've got a fantastic crew of people that really help put somebody at ease and make a great comfort zone for them. And I think almost never have someone...
Never an issue.
They get a little tense, a little worried sometimes. Other times they just sleep.
Yeah, absolutely. 3 or 4 in the morning, heck yeah.
We did a whole body cast from a guy from the waist up, including his head, and he just went out.
Maybe it's kind of
barely remembers it.
Going to the spa or something.
It is kind of like that. It is like an amazing facial. It really clears you out. It sounds like an enema, which is wrong. It's not that kind of cleaning out.
All right, we are talking with Barney Burman. He is an award-winning special effects makeup artist here in Hollywood. Currently, he is on the TV show Grimm, which shoots in Portland. I got to snag him while he was in town briefly.
I've been snagged.
I snagged him. I got him, folks. And we have an extended interview with him today. So don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back with Barney. We're going to continue this conversation, and I'm going to squeeze out some more details. All right, listening to Sweet Life.
Sorry.
You're listening to Sweet Life. I am Brooke Peterson. You're listening to LancerRadio.org. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back.
The foulest stenches in the air, the funk of 40,000 years, and grisly ghouls from every tomb.
We are back. See how fast that was? There you go. I am Brooke Peterson. You're listening to Sweet Life on LancerRadio.org, and today we are talking to Oscar-winning special effects makeup artist Barney Burman.
That sounds very impressive.
Doesn't it?
It does.
Is it? I bet you it never gets old,
I'm excited to hear me talk.
I heard somebody say once, Jay Leno or David Letterman or something, introduced somebody who had just recently won an Oscar, and he's like, how does it feel that your introduction will always and forever be different now as the Oscar-winning so-and-so? How does it feel? Tell us about winning an Oscar, yo.
It's terrible.
or
really
stay in real life.
I can honestly say it was definitely one of the top 3 best days of my life. It was and it wasn't just winning. It was the entire day. It was the way that whole day was structured. And
Tell us.
The way I felt that day, walking into this place, and I had a vibe about me. I didn't really care which way it went. I didn't know if I was going to win or not. And yet something was like, you're going to walk out of here with an Oscar tonight. and I just felt confident. And then sitting in the chair and watching Ben Stiller, he was made up as a character from Avatar, and he came out.
That,
he came out and to do the introduction and give the award away and the announcement. And I just felt like as long as he keeps talking, I'm okay. Nothing's changed. I have had this perfect day right up to now, and when he says the name, that day's going to change. I don't know if it's going to change better or worse, but I know that day's going to change. I kind of didn't want him to stop talking because I just felt so good. And then once he announced it, it was just like everything went into weird hyperdrive, and I felt like emotionally uncontained. And then even after it doesn't stop. It's not like you get off stage and everything calms down. You go into this other room, and there's an army of reporters there, and they are throwing questions at you. And then you walk into another room, and it's another army of photographers. And I felt like when King Kong was up on stage, and it's this blackness, and all these little lights were flashing out of the blackness, and it drove him crazy. To me, it was the opposite. It was like there were so many photographs going on. It was a whiteness, a kind of constant white light with periodic little black spots.
Right.
And it was like hypnotizing.
So what was it like when you're sitting there before they called your name, and then they call your name, or they call you the film? You won. What is that moment?
A weird mix of relief and total just glee. Like. You get up, and now you've got to walk down there and pray to God you don't trip. And
what's the walk like? Are you thinking what you're going to say? Or
well,
does it last forever, or is it like 0.2 seconds, the speed of the walk? Is that a weird question?
The whole thing lasts forever and is 0.2 seconds.
Yeah.
It's just real weird, like surreal netherworld that you go into, and I don't know. It's extremely hard to describe the feeling.
Yeah.
But it just becomes you become so completely immersed in the moment that nothing before that moment or after that moment does or is going to matter.
Oh, that's great.
And yeah, it's just
present.
It's just complete presence and bliss.
Beautiful.
I recommend it. Actually.
I'm going to work on that.
I think people should go out and win an Oscar.
I think I'm going to do that. Thanks, Barney. I didn't really want one before, but now.
Yeah. Why not? You know what? I realized something. It's obtainable. You know what was a huge, huge part of the feeling and the vibe that I carried for weeks, if not months after that, was the amount of love and support that I felt from people was astronomical. And I really didn't. I expected people to say, "Hey, congratulations," but the flood of emails and texts and Facebook posts and phone calls, and let's not forget phone calls, was so enormous. I just felt it's kind of like I didn't realize that many people knew me, much less cared about whether I was handed an award for something I did.
Well, let's get back to your work, because that is why we're actually here, although the Oscar talk is really a lot of fun. But I want people to know how they can do what you do and what it is exactly that you do. I saw on a website apparently that you teach at the Stan Winston School.
I have the Stan Winston School, I think, is a really brilliant idea that Matt Winston, Stan's son, came up with, a couple of other people, that they have people like me who have been around and been doing this for years. They put a lesson on video. So it's like an online school, and you can go and you can buy a lesson or a whole group of lessons, and they get some of the best people, leaving myself out of the scenario. They get really some of the best people in their field and do an in-depth tutorial on video. And
a few of the topics, I just wrote down a couple of these. A couple of them are sculpting, which is so obvious that that's a huge part of what you do. But I never really thought about metallic painting, silicone painting. There must be a difference. Monster suit sculpting, cable mechanisms, and then this is one of my favorites: disasters and exploding heads, animatronics, fat suits, and there's more. Of course, the fat suit makes me think of Les Grossman. How was that? Must have been so much fun.
It was really, it was fun, and it was quite a challenge.
Yeah.
Because I was stepping into a real, like, whole new level of not just of like high profile talent. Working with Tom and Ben Stiller, and there was no room for error, I felt that, and that's not even necessarily true, because we did the makeup, we did 3 tests before we came up with the look, and so there was a room for not error but for adjustment. But I never approached it like, if it doesn't work, we'll do it again. I just couldn't handle it that way. So you have to be on your A game 100% of the time. And so it was a big challenge. There's a lot of tension and an excitement that was kind of unparalleled.
And then he wears this thing and sells the heck out of it. He did such a great job with that.
Such a good job.
You must love that. Or how is that for you, actually, when you have this suit? And I noticed just with the classes that there's engineering and mechanics involved. How much of that or do you have any input in or involved with? Or are you mainly the sculptor creator?
If we're creating something that requires some animatronic quality to it, then we handle that in shop as well. Okay.
Now, are you also the one building the animatronics?
I'm not. I'm personally not that mechanically inclined, but so I hire people that are much smarter than I am. That's the whole thing. A huge part of this and doing a good job is just knowing who to hire and what to have them do.
So it does sound like, between working with the actors, in very personal situations and for long amounts of time versus a large team of people, you've got to be a pretty good collaborator / people person to do what you do. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if you have to be. I've known some people that are not necessarily the best people persons. I don't know. That's the right term for that. But they are good enough artists and to create something kind of wonderful.
So that's not a deal breaker.
It's not necessarily a deal breaker. Personally, I think it should be. I think I don't think it's never necessary to treat somebody badly. I don't appreciate that. I don't agree with bullying people into doing their work. Okay. So I want my people to be happy, and hopefully they are. Right now, they're probably throwing stuff at the radio.
Don't worry.
Up. We have to listen to you all day. Now we have to listen to you on the radio, too. Anyway, so I don't know what I'm saying anymore. I'm going off track.
Well, because the time is flying by, as usual, what is the most fulfilling part of this job for you? Why do you love it? Assuming that you do. Do you love it?
I do love it in moments. There are times when a sculpture or a paint job or the application just comes to life, and you find the character, you find the authenticity of that character, and those moments really make me feel good. There's a character coming up on Grimm that a guy named Derek Mears who has been in more makeups. He and a few other people. Are some of the top creature guys, and he brought this character to life, and I can't go into details about it, but there was a point where it just worked. It just was finished, and that was it. And he gets up and he moves, and he has this way about him, and you think, oh my God, he's complete. He's a complete creature and character unto himself, and those are the moments that you just sort of beam with pride.
Yeah.
And of course, I'll go back and look at it and go, it should have been this, it should have been that. But
no, I know what you mean. So for anybody who's interested in this as a potential life for them, where would you suggest they start? Schools, magazines? Call you up. Hey, Barney.
It's a tricky one. Schools are very expensive,
yeah.
And I don't know if with today's, here's the way I think it. If you put as much, whether you went to school or you just got books and studied online, or you went and intern in a shop or do things yourself or whatever you do, if you put as much energy into doing that thing that you want to do as, say, a lawyer or a doctor does, if you put half as much energy as a lawyer or doctor does to put into becoming a lawyer or doctor, you're going to do all right. You're going to learn it and you're going to do well. It's really about how much you put into it, and what is your commitment level. Is it something you really want to do? And people got to be honest and know themselves. I've seen people who come and say, "Oh, I want to do that," and then their actions show otherwise. But the people who are inspired by it, who are really driven to it, to whatever they want to do in life, find that thing that drives you, and be honest with yourself and work toward it.
There you go. Easy breezy. All right. This is all of my time with Barney Burman. He is an Oscar-winning makeup special effects artist here in Hollywood, currently working on Grimm, which shoots in Portland and airs on Friday nights on network television. Thank you for joining us, Barney Burman. Barney, you can see his work in scores of films. Scores. Do people say scores anymore?
I've never been to Scores, but I heard it was a fun place to visit.
I've also heard it's a fun place. And he was also responsible for this past summer's Star Trek Into Darkness. So go check that out. Okay, Barney, thank you so much. Can't thank you enough.
Thank you, Brooke. I really appreciate you having me in here.
You've been listening to Sweet Life. I'm Brooke Peterson. You can like us on Facebook by searching Sweet Life Radio Show. Until next time, make it sweet.